Good morning, good evening to wherever you are in the world. Welcome back to another episode of the Coffee Hour. All right, today we do have, first off, I know we're starting a little later than usual, and that is because honestly, I was not going to stream today. There just was not really a whole lot of, kind of content out there that I like to cover. And honestly, I spent the last pretty much 2 hours since I woke up just kind of, I guess, forecasting stuff and looking over things and going over my own portfolio. But I will cover some of the things that I did do in my own portfolio, especially some of the selling that I did. I did end up selling a couple of ETFs and to lock in profits, and I did move some of the money into different things. So I might talk about that maybe towards the end. So anyways, appreciate everyone joining me for this stream. All right. Again, this stream is not like my usual. All right. This was put together in the last 20 minutes, and I'm just going to kind of go over things that I just, am looking at. There's definitely a lot of fear in the market right now, especially with Bitcoin, especially to the MSTR shareholders. A lot of FUD going on, especially for BMNR, especially for Ethereum. We had some really bad news come out just recently. I mean, within probably the last 12 hours regarding Zcash, which is not a crypto I'm involved in or even really hold or even looked at. But some, things like that is a real risk. So we'll be covering that. We'll be talking about Quantinium. All right. We'll be going over a clip, and we'll be going over SpaceX, and we'll be kind of summarizing some stuff for Bitcoin. Okay, specifically Bitcoin, because that is where a bulk of my portfolio is in the current moment. And obviously, when we have these really bad, dramatic sell-offs, you start to question things, right? You start to question your own conviction. You start to question, all the decision making, and it helps to kind of work backwards. Go through your old notes, go through your old research. Understand again why you're investing in this stuff. So even if you do have these dramatic drawdowns, you don't get shaken out. So we'll be covering all of that and more. Okay, let's take a look at who we got in the chat. So far, we have THB Finance. Welcome. He says first. All right, so appreciate you joining, Coach. We also got Champs. Yo, hello, bro, from Utah. Well, hello, bro, from Thailand. And thank you for joining. We got Bon. All right, we got Bon up in the chat. Howdy, says he. All right, we have Sinusat Capital. Good evening and morning, Eugen and all. Thank you for joining Sinusat. We also have Skeptic giving the cool smirk face. All right, I'm sure he's happy. He just announced in the Discord that he had a couple of trades that went positive. So congratulations, Skeptic. All right. I also have been, very carefully doing a little bit of swing trading. Had some blow up in my face. More notoriously was the Broadcom one. I went in a 2x levered Broadcom ETF, and that thing is down, and it is what it is, right? But other than that, doing okay. We have Desert Bitcoin. Nothing to see here. Move along. I love it. I love it. This is the attitude we need. I had to watch, some old Bitcoin, British HODL videos. And, again, it's just the 3 rules. That's it. Just follow the 3 rules and you will be fine. Buy Bitcoin, shut the hell up, and become fabulously wealthy. All right. So absolutely loving it. All right. And we have Skeptic saying, I'm being a day trader now. I just converted today. That is so funny. All right. Well, that is awesome to hear, Skeptic. Glad it's working out for you. All right. Let's get into it, ladies and gentlemen. All right. First, as always, do appreciate you guys joining for the stream. First thing we're going to look at is not the futures, because again, the futures, oh my God, the futures is already going down. I think there's a huge correction happening. Look, S&P 500 down to 64 basis points, Nasdaq down 1.15. This is just showcasing that there's a couple thoughts out there. One, you're not really having a true unwind at this level. We still have the big SpaceX IPO coming up, and there is a idea being floated out there that we're seeing some capital rotations. All right, people selling out now to raise money for their SpaceX shares whenever they do hit the IPO. All right, but we do see oil again still hovering above $90. Not good. I haven't seen any latest developments regarding Iran, U.S.-Israel war. Honestly, I think it's pretty much at a stalemate at this time. There was some stuff domestically with, voting, to kind of take away the war powers resolution or something like that. I didn't even read the article, to be honest. Again, it's almost noise at this point. I think people just stopped caring about, or at least the market stopped caring about what's happening over there, and we're kind of moving on. But we will definitely be caring about that in the future when inflation comes roaring back. Anyways, let's take a look at the heat map. All right, this is the S&P 500. We know that semiconductors sold off today. All right, we had Broadcom down quite a bit, AMD, Micron selling off. All right, so we had a sell-off of the semiconductors. But where the heck did they all move to? Well, it looks like they all moved to healthcare. All right, a lot of healthcare names in the green. They moved to financials, credit services, Visa, MasterCard, JP Morgan, Bank of America, etc. So, I mean, is that what today was? Is this and they moved into industrials, right? Is this a sell the semiconductor, move into, more defensive positions, things like healthcare, industrials, and financials? I mean, that's what it looks like according to the heat map. Let's see. We have Robert Ferris saying, I made a few bucks on those drawdowns today. AMDW, AVGW, and ARMW. Bought 50 shares of each and sold them 3 hours later. Excellent. Awesome to hear. Let's see real quick. There is something. So I forgot. I got to pause right here, guys. I apologize. Give me one moment before we continue. Man, someone is revving their engine out there. It is so annoying. I live next to a mechanic. And he's just doing his mechanic stuff, which, I guess at 9 in the morning is not a big deal, but hey, it is what it is. Let's see. Post this. I forgot to do my X thing because X be Xing and not posting. All right, cool. All right, got that done. We have we have Skeptic saying, we making deals with Japan now. Yes, there is some news that dropped about the Department of Energy or the Trump administration, partnering with Japan. And basically it's going to be a bunch of these scientific and technology departments all coming together to share scientific research and things of that nature. So that's really good news. All right. Anyways, moving on. All right. So we saw the heat map. We saw what's happening in futures. We kind of got that. All right. Let's take a look. S&P 500 up 41 basis points for the day, even though I'm sure for a lot of people did not feel that way unless you're just an index and chill type of guy or gal. We also have SMH. All right. This is the semiconductor ETF. Over the last 5 days, you guys can see it's still up in the green, but we've been having these like kind of crazy chop downs, right? So we lost 5% on that day, Wednesday into Thursday. And then, Friday, we're going to have that, Thursday, we had a pump, buy the dip. And now it looks like in the after hours, it's starting to go back down. All right. So I think, again, my suspicion is that there's a rotation of money, people taking profits off the table. The thesis for semiconductors, the thesis for memory, and photonics has not changed. There's still bottlenecks. It's still in high demand. All right. And we also have DRAM. DRAM had a pretty nice drop, right? We actually had the big three. All right. Micron, SK Hynix, and Samsung all kind of fall off a cliff. All right. In dramatic fashion. So again, I'm not saying this is a bad ETF by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's an excellent ETF, but I ended up selling my own DRAM. I sold my position. I wanted to lock in the gains. I was at like 80 something, 88, almost close to 100%. But I decided, you know what, I'm just going to lock in the gains. So I ended up selling at about, I think around a 75% gain. So I'm pretty happy with that. And I'm using that money to rotate it elsewhere. All right. Or I'll just hold it defensively for now. Let's check out a new IPO that just debuted today. And that is Quantinium. All right. Quantinium. So shout out to anyone who did get in the Quantinium IPO. All right, congratulations. I'm not sure if you're happy or not, depending on how many shares you got. But, we did have a nice pump from 60 to 65. And then in perfect, IPO fashion, it fell back down. Okay, it fell back down about 11%. And it looks like in the aftermarkets, it's down about 12 to 13%. Who knows what's going to happen? Usually with these IPO names, they usually have a huge skyrocket up and then, a fall down, right? If we actually look at Cerberus, this is Cerberus Systems. This just launched. We covered this on this channel not too long ago, and they're down 30%, right? They just IPO'd and they're down 30%, right? So you have that huge spike up. They they IPO'd at 165. And then they made their way up like pretty much to 311, right? $311. So you already, one extra money there or two extra money there. And now, it kind of just sold off, just, typical IPO stuff. All right, moving on. So from Quantinuum, all right, Quantinuum, whatever you guys want to call it. We're going to listen to the CEO talk about his, IPO. All right, we're going to let him kind of talk up his book and listen in again. All of this was put together in the last 20 minutes. I've not even seen this clip. Was not able to get any notes taken down. So let's listen in on what he has to say. I might have to speed it up because it's about almost an 8-minute clip.
And now on to today's IPO. It's called Quantinuum. It's a spinoff from Honeywell. It begins trading today on the Nasdaq.
Quantinuum. Okay, I got to hear that one more time. Hold on a second. I got to hear it because I've been calling it all types of things.
Quantinuum. It's a spinoff from Honeywell. It begins trading today on the Nasdaq. The ticker symbol is QNT. It did price an upsized initial public offering, $60 a share. It raised $1.68 billion. Now it is one of the highest profile public bets on quantum computing. It has ambitions to transform industries from drug discovery to finance and AI, but it is early stage. It has about 31 million in 2025 revenue, sizable net loss. Joining us now in a first-time CNBC interview is Rajiv Hazra. He's the CEO of Quantinuum. Rajiv, good to have you. Congrats on the IPO this morning. Above the range, upsized as well. But I do want to come to sort of the longer picture here of revenue. Bookings were 79 million in 2025, only 1.3 million in the first quarter of 2026. Is that normal lumpiness? When do you have a line of sight to actual increases in revenues that might give confidence to investors about the longer term viability of the business?
Thank you. Good morning and great to be here. Thank you for having me on. We are in a transformative moment for the computing industry. As AI and workloads take over and drive increasing amounts of value, we're also seeing the need for that compute to be more sustainable in terms of energy space. That is what quantum computing does. What we're building is a durable solution set, including our hardware and our full stack software, and deeply engaged with customers. Our view of the long-term opportunities for this is made more confident by our interactions with our blue chip customers, whether, as you stated, it's in the pharma industry, chemicals industry, drug industry, financial sector. The need for these kinds of computing resources is absolutely a given. And so what we are doing is very patiently, but very methodically building out that infrastructure, working deeply with customers, and building a durable value proposition for our investors.
Is there a customer case today where you can say that the company already is creating measurable economic value, or is that still yet to come?
Yes, we are absolutely engaged across end markets, as I said, and we have customers today that are using our commercially available hardware and software, our full stack, to get started with their quantum journey on transforming, whether it's their product set is pharma, their product set is financial instruments, their product set is new chemicals, on transforming the way they've done business with AI and now quantum into this new era. So yes, absolutely. We have, the beginnings and the rapid expansion inside of these use cases.
Okay, Rajiv, Jim Cramer, thank you so much for coming on and congratulations. Very exciting IPO. If you don't mind, maybe you can help the investor at home, because a lot of let's say both youthful investors, retail investors are invested already in your company. Why don't you please, what are the simple metrics, the principles that investors should understand about quantum? Are they buying a quantum hardware company, for instance, a software platform, cybersecurity company, or the operating system for the next era of computing? Maybe you can just kind of help the people along so they know what they actually have.
I just want to say that was an excellent question by Jim Cramer. I mean, Jim catches a lot of flack, but I think that was an excellent question by Jim Cramer. All right, let's listen in, because I still don't even understand quantum, like actual, cases, everything. I know it's the future of computing, blah, blah, blah. But anyways, let's listen to the CEO actually talk about what the heck quantum is and what are we buying when you choose QNT. All right, so let's listen in.
Thank you, Jim. And I know you've been talking about quantum for a while. It's early days of a massive industry. So as the technology matures, it takes me back to the PCs with 100 megahertz CPUs in them. What the KPIs are for us as we focus on execution is making the hardware better. More and more performance, more and more accuracy. Today we have the highest accuracy quantum computer called Helios available both on-premise and in cloud. The second is, as we build out the hardware, getting the software in place to build a robust developer ecosystem that can develop applications to serve use cases across the industry. And then the third area is to build the services and solutions and work very deeply with our customers as they start adopting quantum to actually get these use cases and solutions into their production flow. So this is a journey, but the journey has started. It is not 10 to 15 years out. It's very much now, and we will only see acceleration going forward.
Yeah, and one of the things that excited me exactly that in terms of the time frame. Remember when Jensen Huang pulled the time frame forward, and he was talking about it was going to be much later. But I thought the Department of Commerce endorsement of what you're doing was very important. Can you talk about what you intend to do with the money and how you got selected?
So we absolutely see it as you said, as a very important step for both the validation of quantum as an extremely important critical technology for national security, as well as industrial progress and competitiveness. We have entered into an LOI to essentially deepen and enrich our roadmap. We build trapped ion-based quantum computers, and the R&D grant is intended to allow us to be able to scale those technologies, including supply chain onshore in the U.S. For us, it's a great validation of Quantinuum as a strategic asset for the U.S. quantum industry, and we're very thankful that we have this ability now to be able to shoulder this responsibility to take trapped ion-based quantum computing forward to serve not just government purposes, but a large industrial base and commercial use cases as well.
Yeah, you mentioned U.S. and national security. So are export controls something that conceivably would come into play here and therefore limit your addressable market?
Well, we operate in every geography, including the U.S., in compliance with the laws of the country. We work with governments on what would be progressive controls that balance national security needs with economic growth for companies like us. And so we will continue to do that.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's becoming an increasingly national security technology. So my question is, do you see a point at which you will not be able to sell to some of those other countries?
We will continue to develop the technology, and we will continue to work with the government to make sure both the U.S. national security interests are met, and we have the ability to scale the business to a worldwide customer base.
Finally, Honeywell, obviously still a large shareholder, still has obviously importance here.
I think that was an excellent question, and I think he answered that very correctly, especially in this political climate, because the Trump administration has taken, or the U.S. government, the USG has taken stakes in his company and all these companies. And I never stopped to think about that, as quantum becomes more commercially available, as it starts to, actually spread out, are other countries going to start buying quantum? Right? Are they going to start buying their own quantum, having their own quantum chips, or their own sovereign quantum, right? Just like we have sovereign AI, Europe, the Middle East, those parts of the world. Of course, there will probably be restrictions on China or any country that the United States currently has some type of, tariff or sanction against. So, but that is a really good question, right? As far as scaling, these companies, IonQ, Quantinuum, whatever, screw it, this guy, or D-Wave or the other ones, how does politics play a piece in this? So that is a really good question. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and end that clip. I thought, I still don't fully understand it. That quantum is going to be used across several different industries, not just computers or AI. It could be used for healthcare. And manufacturing as well, et cetera. So that is actually pretty cool. All right, let's move on. All right, for all my Bitcoin holders out there, I'm sure it's very stressful. I'm sure things are really crappy right now. All right, but hang in there. Times will get better. You just got to hold on. All right, you got to hold on for dear life. HODL, as they say. We see that Bitcoin is down 64 basis points today. Over the last 5 days, oh my God, it's just atrocious. It just gets worse the more you look at it and the more you zoom out, right? Over the last month, down 21%. Over the last 5 days, down almost 14%. Over the last 6 months, down 31%. Year to date, 27%. We're looking from all-time highs back in October before 10/10. We see that we are still down about 50% on Bitcoin. All right, we are down 50% on Bitcoin. Obviously, that is not fun for anyone. So basically what's been going on, I got to check Discord here real quick. I'll have to check that later. Basically what's been going on people are selling, right? People are selling, people are rotating out. A lot of fear is in the market, right? We see MSTR absolutely getting demolished, down almost 13.35% over the last 5 days. Over the last month, down 30%. All right, obviously much, much more. And over the last 6 months, down 30%. Year to date, 17% over the last year from its former high back in October. Oh, back in July, it looks like. 1 year, yeah, back in July. We see that it is down 71%. So that is pretty atrocious. That's pretty nasty. All right. So BMNR, which is an Ethereum treasury, we also see in that one get smoked. Okay, over the last day, up 0.8%. I think it's down even more now. It was hovering at like the 16s, yeah, 1688. But we see over the last 5 days, down 5.34%. Over the last month, down 21.5%. Over the last 6 months, down 50%. Year to date, down 42 over the last year. So people always question this, like, well, what happened here, right? This is when they announced that BMNR was becoming a treasury. It used to be, I think, a mining company, but now an Ethereum mining company, no less, or I think it was a Bitcoin. But anyways, beside the fact, that's when it was announced that, Tom Lee was going to be the chairman and they were going to announce his treasury strategy, et cetera. So all this hype, we saw this across the board. All treasury companies got this insane rally, right? But really all it was a pump and dump. And then it settled around here, right? It settled around the $35, $40 line, and then, started to climb back up. And then, we saw the sell-off happen, right? Back in October, right? So from October, really, is its former high. We're still down about 71%. So that is absolutely disgusting, right? Ethereum just getting absolutely cooked out there. All right. But I see my buddy over there, Coasty Dividends, saying 50K loading for Bitcoin is what I'm assuming. So interesting thing. We can front run this. Hold on a second. We can actually front run this because I'm gonna not front run, but I guess load up the Bitcoin stuff first. We'll come back to the new ETF that Defiance is going to be dropping, and an interview from Hyperliquid about SpaceX. Okay, so let's talk about it. All right, so Bitcoin, Ethereum down, right? Everyone's scared. Everyone's calling that Bitcoin's going to go down to 50 and 35K. I am strongly, well, let me say this. I can't predict the future, but what I can do is use a model that's been at least correct most of the time. Okay. A lot of people reference the Bitcoin 4-year cycle. They say, Bitcoin 4-year cycle is really the end all be all. There's also the power law, and the power law, I think, is really the story here. It's the one framework that actually works. All right. It has a 96% accuracy rate using past performance. Okay. So again, future performance, forecasting, all that stuff. You got to kind of take it with a grain of salt, but at least, it gives you an idea. So what am I talking about? What the hell does all this mean? All right. So if we look at, and this is coming from Bitcoin News, according to the rainbow chart, this is as bad as the 2022 FTX crash. All right. So this is a rainbow table that, they use for tracking Bitcoin. And then right now it's pierced below. The last time we saw that was during the FTX sell-off. So can this sell-off also be just as bad, if not worse? We're going to find out, right? We will find out. But we also have from CoinDesk, more than half of all Bitcoin in circulation is now held at an unrealized loss, a signal that has coincided with every major bear market bottom in history. Okay, so they're basically showing this chart that we are at least near the bottom, right? If not, probably a little bit more. But, again, how much is more? Is 35K the floor? Is 50K the floor? Is 55K the floor? Is it 58, right? Is 58 the floor? So that is a question I had to go down, and I wanted to answer for myself. So I went to Bitbo. All right, bitbo.io. I recommend people take a look at this website from time to time, especially if they're kind of heavy into the Bitcoin space. It has a lot of useful metrics. It does look kind of intimidating, right? But 90% of this stuff I don't even really look at, or probably 99% of this stuff I don't look at. What I honestly look at is the power law. And let's see, power law. You can see Bitcoin versus gold. Where is it? And I've posted this before. Here's power law. So you guys can look at like power law. Let me make it a little bigger so you guys can actually see it. So yeah, here, this is the link I usually click. So it's one of these links that you guys can kind of tap for yourself, and it'll pull up this. Well, nope, that's fear and greed. All right, this is the fear and greed index for Bitcoin as well. Obviously, we're at extreme fear because everyone's selling out. You can just read X, go through X, and you'll see it all over the place. But anyways, this is what I want to reference here, right? Because everyone's worried. I'm certainly worried. I have a huge amount of money in IBIT, right? Bitcoin, whatever. So I'm obviously very worried, but this chart is very reassuring, I should say, right? Especially when you're down in the dumps and you're like, I don't know if I should buy. And that is usually when you should buy, not financial advice. I'm talking, just for myself here. So I'm looking at this chart and I'm like, okay, cool. So we are screwed right here, right? This is where we're at. This is what's today's date? The 5th, 4th. Okay. So we're going to go here. So right now the power law has Bitcoin bottoming at about, or the floor, the support, I should say, is at $58,000, right? 58,000 Bitcoin. Some people, might ask, okay, but is this thing been accurate? Is it always right? And again, this has about a 96% accuracy. All right. So what is the power law? I'm sure you guys are going to ask that. I'm going to cover that in just a moment. But basically the power law was created by this physicist. And it's, back tested on Bitcoin, and basically it accounts for things that the 4-year cycle can't account for. So it is a useful back testing tool, right? It is a useful kind of forecasting tool, at least in my mind, right? And it gives you a couple different ranges here, right? So you can see the red is the support. It gives you a timeline, right? So if you scroll out, you can see in green, that's 2027, November timeframe, November 16th, right? What they expect it to be at. It doesn't mean it's going to get there, right? It's just, it's just useful for a back test, right? As you guys can see here, July 19th, 2025, the price of Bitcoin was 117, but in the green, what they had for the actual regression, linear regression fit for Bitcoin was at 121, right? So it was about $4,000 off, right? But so I'm looking at this thing. All right, let me get to it. So I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, man, are we going to go lower? Like how much lower, right? So right now, the power law, according to the power law, according to BitBo, we have a support at $58,000, and it has never broken below that, right? According to the power law, we have never broken below that. So that is what I'm looking at. That's what I'm keeping an eye on. Can this go lower and hit that 58,000 Bitcoin? I mean, yes, it can. But what are the chances of it breaking below, right? That is the question that I had for myself. And I asked, Gemini, because, that's what we all do. Has the power law ever been wrong for Bitcoin when it comes to Bitcoin breaking support price or the bottom? And it said no. All right. The Bitcoin power law model has never been definitively wrong regarding its lower boundary or absolute bottom throughout its history. Since Bitcoin's inception, every major bear market and market crash has found its floor strictly above the model's lower support band. So the people who are calling for 35 Bitcoin or 35K Bitcoin, 40K, 45K, or 50K might be pleasantly surprised in the future, right? Or unpleasantly surprised. Who knows? They might either be unhappy or happy. So looking at this again, just going through this, and I read about this. I didn't know about this power law until a few months ago. And it came from the book Bitcoin 1 Million by Fred Krueger, who's also on X. And I mean, I think he has an absolute disdain for MicroStrategy. But it's funny because in the same community of Bitcoiners, I mean, Fred Krueger is also kind of hated by Bitcoiners. So anyways, I read the book, or I listened to the book on Audible. I thought it was a really good book. It gave me, just some additional information about Bitcoin, the future, fiat currency, debasement. And he mentioned, again, the preferred shares that MicroStrategy was coming out with, or Bit bonds at the time, right? I thought it was just a really well done book. So anyways, he's talking about the physicist, Dr. Giovanni Santostasi, that actually came up with this formula. All right. So he came up with this formula. And statistically debated. While the power curve acts as a highly accurate forecasting and structural tool, statisticians and critics point out that no mathematical model is a foolproof guarantee of future performance, which is true, right? But we do know that at least it has about a 96% accuracy, right? And again, that was just coming from all this research and reading that I've been doing. Because usually that's what you do when your stocks and everything start to go into the toilet. You start to, question everything and go back and start reading through your notes and start reading through your thesis for stuff. So I ended up buying more IBIT, actually a lot more IBIT during this last dip. All right. So for anyone who is investing into Bitcoin, or for anyone who is interested in understanding, kind of the power law, I recommend this website, bitbo.io. Recommend you guys check it out. Recommend you guys understand what it is, right? Because when we're having these really crazy sell-offs right here, this is reassuring. Like if it falls down to 58K, cool. I'm going to buy more at that level. If it falls, if it doesn't fall and continues to go up, even better. Then I'm sitting pretty, right? So this is just everything I wanted to show you guys. Again, this is not scripted. None of this is planned. I was kind of just going through stuff this morning, and I wasn't going to stream. And then, I was like, you know what, screw it. I'll just share with everybody what I'm looking at, because I'm sure there's people out there who are investing into these assets and they're freaking out. I mean, you go look on X, my Sailor sold 32 Bitcoin. Oh my God, the whole freaking market went crazy, went ballistic. And they're like, strategy is going to implode on itself. It's going to blow up. They can't pay the dividend, etc. Let's take a step back, guys. Understand that a Sailor said he may sell some Bitcoin. All right. To inoculate the market. This was that inoculation. I don't think he sold and then the market sold off. I think that's really stupid, to be honest. I think that's lazy. It's just really lazy. I think if anything, it was completely coincidental. If Michael Saylor selling 32 Bitcoin could dictate the entire market of Bitcoin, there's a problem. That is a problem. We have the president of the United States starting a Bitcoin reserve. That didn't even move the price. We have Texas saying they're moving forward with a Bitcoin reserve. That didn't move the price. And you're telling me that Michael Saylor was the one who caused Bitcoin to sell off? I mean, come on, let's be real here, right? Let's be real here. But anyways, of course, the fudsters and the people who are just anti-Saylor, hate MSTR, they're just going to post as much FUD as possible. And I can't even believe I'm talking about this stuff, because I'm not a Bitcoin maxi by any stretch of the imagination. I invest in AI. I invest in semis. I invest in the S&P 500. I invest in, Bitcoin, Ethereum. Like, I'm all over the place. I even have freaking metals investments. I'm all over the place. And seeing these different communities go all over, it's amazing. It's absolutely incredible. Kind of the idiocy that is out there. But anyways, with all that being said, I'm not worried. I'm not worried about Bitcoin going lower. If it goes lower, cool. If it hits that 58,000 band, cool. I'm just going to buy more. I've been saying this since the start of the year, that if Bitcoin continues to go lower, I will just buy more. And that's exactly what I've been doing. I'm not worried about no stretch. I'm not worried about SATA not paying their dividend. All right. I'm not worried about, the collapse of MicroStrategy. I'm not worried about or Bitcoin going to zero. I think we have bigger problems, especially in the world. And what's driving this thesis is one, liquidity, which is coming back. But we also have inflation. Again, I've talked about inflation probably 100 times on this channel, and the debasement trade. Bitcoin maxis will say, people will keep their wealth in fiat that's slowly devaluing and deteriorating versus putting it in Bitcoin, right? I mean, you can put it in gold too. Like, gold has kept up with inflation quite well, but over these last couple of months, it's been absolutely disgusting. But maybe it's a consolidation phase, right? I still believe that this is going to be a inflation year. This is going to be a story about Bitcoin and gold. So I've kept my bags on gold and Bitcoin. I have not sold out. I've not sold a single thing. If things were to get really bad in my portfolio, let's say because I use a lot of margin, let's say I'm about to get, a mass liquidation after selling a bunch of stuff. Well, gold is the next one up on the chopping block. I refuse to sell my IBIT position. 100% unequivocally, I refuse to sell. So, anyways, let's check the comments. I'm sure some of you guys might have your own differences of opinion, and that is A-okay. Let's see what's going on. All right, so JTX09 says HOW distribution this week, 55 cents. That's actually pretty damn good. That's actually really damn good. I didn't even check. All right. So shout out to anyone that has HOOW. All right. OOW is the Robinhood weekly pay ETF from Round Hill. Okay. We have cookies and milk. Excellent. Screeching possum. Yeah. Science. Let's go. Hey man, a little bit of mathematical, mathematical formulas and all those fancy numbers and freaking alphabets and formulas. Yeah. Let's do it, man. I don't know crap about, statistics I was never really strong at math. I don't know if you guys have caught on to that, but yeah, I'm not really all that good with math. So I'll just take, Giovanni at his word that he did a lot of research on this. But honestly, no, all things, for real. Giovanni has gotten a lot of praise from the Bitcoin community and from just people, following these trends as the power law being a de facto accurate framework for forecasting Bitcoin and back testing Bitcoin. So, there it is. We have MJ Bowhunter, buy when the blood is in the street, referring to Bitcoin and things tied to it. Yes, 100%. I increased my MSTR position. All right. I increased my MSTR position, not MSTW. I bought more MSTR. Okay. I hate to admit that, especially on this channel. But yes, I increased my MSTR position by a whole bunch. It might be a short-term swing trade for me. All right. I might write it back up because now people are forecasting once we hit this low, that, we're going to run for 90 and then have one final shakeout in sometime in October, give or take, plus or minus a few weeks. And then we're off to the races. Right. But the Clarity Act is something that, could possibly have an impact on this. But, again, this is Bitcoin. Bitcoin don't care about regulation. Bitcoin don't care about a president who owns Bitcoin or talking up that the country is going to be the Bitcoin capital of the world. Bitcoin does not care about any narrative. Bitcoin is Bitcoin. All right. It moves, ebbs and flows. Power cycle is the most accurate. 4-year cycle is also still accurate. Right. So my thoughts there. But anyways, one thing I want you guys to note here is when you look at this website and you look at this red line increases over time as well, right? Duh. But what does that actually tell you? Well, if we're at 63,000 right now, right, by 8/31, which is August 31st, 2026, right? Supposedly, right? That is the floor. So anything you buy now, in my opinion, I bought, right? Anything I buy now may not revisit that 58,000 level, will not revisit the 35,000 level, assuming this framework is true, right, and is accurate. So, as time moves on, then the floor continues to rise, right? So you may not get that price ever again. And I'm thinking about this out loud, right? I'm thinking about these things because I'm freaking out. I'm like, man, I don't know what to do. I'm paralyzed. Bitcoin is down so much. Should I buy or is it going to go lower? Right. And again, I just referenced this power law and it makes total sense. Right. So that is why I'm adding to it and buying, and I will continue to DCA. Now, BM&R, totally different story, but also the same story. Right. Totally different story, but also the same story. One thing that people discount about BM&R or even Ethereum, right? Price, narrative does not follow price, I think is the saying. I mentioned it yesterday, right? Price is price. People like narrative usually follows price is really it, right? People try to come up with narratives of why BM&R or why Ethereum, why Bitcoin is falling, why this, why that. That usually comes after the price has already moved down, right? For BM&R, it holds Ethereum. You guys know this. It's not a top secret thing, right? It holds Ethereum. There is something out there called the Ethereum and Bitcoin ratio. And as Bitcoin continues to rise, Ethereum will rise with it, right? Ethereum will absolutely rise with it. Now, Tom Lee has called out for all these crazy price targets, and he's talking about the flippening happening with Ethereum flipping Bitcoin. I don't know if I 100% agree with that logic, but I do agree with the Bitcoin Ethereum ratio. And if Bitcoin was to get to, let's say 200, let's say back to all-time highs, right? Ethereum would probably be back to about, the $4,000 level, right? 4,000, 4,500, whatever it is, right? But BM&R has acquired so much Ethereum at this time that if we were to have some moves up, BM&R is going to have some violent moves up, like crazy moves up, right? We already see this with MSTR. When we were like back in just a couple of weeks ago, May 11th, right, when Bitcoin was climbing up higher, MSTR was climbing up even higher than that. It was climbing at almost a 2.6, right? 2.65, I think, is what I had it mapped out as, right? Which is crazy, right? Because it's acquired so much Bitcoin since the launch of Stretch, right? So BM&R has also done the same thing. So if BM&R or if Ethereum starts to continue its climb up with Bitcoin, I think the moves up for BM&R are going to be sick. It's gonna make a lot of people sick. And they just came out with their preferred share, right? Their preferred share is also part of this story. They're following the Saylor playbook. BM&R, I think that's a smart move because no one wants to buy BM&R right now, right? The shares are absolutely like untouchable, which is, it's okay. I mean, that's what it is, right? People are rage quitting. People are getting out of BM&R. People are getting out of ETH. You're seeing it all over X and YouTube. Some longtime OG Ethereum holders are now selling their bags, right? Everyone's like, oh, this is done. We're done with this crap. We're moving to Zcash, only for Zcash to have this freaking big hole in their code that allowed for the unlimited minting of Zcash. And now Zcash is going through a 27% decline. But anyways, beside the fact, going back to the BM&R and Ethereum, Ethereum is having a lot of mass adoption. All right, it's having a lot of mass adoption. It does follow Bitcoin's lead, right? So as Bitcoin continues its climb up, so will Ethereum and so will BM&R. So BM&R, MSTR, the treasuries of these two assets, I'm very bullish on. But going back to the preferred shares, what is interesting about these preferred shares compared to MSTRs? MSTR can't generate money. They can't stake Bitcoin, right? They don't stake the Bitcoin. They can't stake the Bitcoin. But what Ethereum does and what makes them different is BM&R holds a productive asset. It holds Ethereum that can be staked, right? If they're staking their entire bag, their entire ETH holding, their entire treasury on Maven, which is the Made in America Validator network that Tom Lee also BM&R also owns, they're making what? I think $1 million a day. And on a fully diluted basis for BMNP, the dividend amount, I think, is like 90 mil or something like that. I think it's 90 mil. So they have more than ample dividend coverage, right? Versus MSTR. That's the biggest stigma with MSTRs. How are they going to generate this yield, right? And MSTR common stockholders are kind of pissed because they get diluted, right? They'd have to sell the Bitcoin. S&P wants, in order to upgrade their credit, S&P wants to see them sell some of that Bitcoin, right? As a, in order to pay off the dividend. So, I can go on and on and on, but that is all just the stuff that goes through my mind. Whenever all this crap is happening, when all the FUD is on X, when all the FUD is in Discord, all the Discords I'm a part of, or even the FUD on YouTube, it's just, the comment sections, it gets ridiculous. But I always try to ground myself in the logic, the research, and the facts. Okay. So anyways, I've been going on about this. No, not Freddy Krueger. Fred Krueger. Let's see. MJ Bowhunter also says, I don't ever worry about getting the absolute bottom or selling the absolute top. Excellent. Awesome to hear, MJ Bowhunter. Always a pleasure. Smart man. I hope to be. All right. I'm trying to be a better investor, as my tagline is, right? Let's see. Coasty Dividend says, thanks. Ask Gemini, when was BitBo wrong? It's not BitBo. Like, BitBo is just a website that hosts a bunch of this information. BitBo is just the platform, but BitBo is hosting the framework for the power law. So yeah, let's see. The 4%, it was wrong just for knowledge. Yes. Again, the framework has a 96% accuracy when it comes to the power law and Bitcoin and price forecasting. Let's see. We have Michael Hawksworth saying, what percentage or portfolio are people putting into Bitcoin? What dollar averaging has always been a volatile asset? For me, I think my IBIT position is almost 20% of my portfolio. It's disgustingly large. Like, I pretty much got out of indexes, like any type of index, VGT, the Qs, S&P 500, and just moved it all into, or moving it all still into IBIT. That is scary, absolutely. But again, I believe in so hard that about the debasement trade, right? The devaluing of the dollar, the US government not choosing austerity. They're going to choose to print money. We're never going to have a recession in the United States ever again because the government's just going to print money. The Federal Reserve stuck in between a rock and a hard place. Both lead, whether you raise rates, hike rates, or remain steady, the United States is going to print money regardless. So that also plays into the story of, again, the debasement trade. 1 ounce of gold is always 1 ounce of gold. 1 Bitcoin is always 1 Bitcoin. It's just the US dollar is continuing to devalue at insane rates. So we had Morgan Stanley, I believe it was Morgan Stanley. They came out with, a white paper basically to their, clients, to their, wealth managers and things like that. And they basically said, people need to start asking why not have Bitcoin. And if they don't want Bitcoin, they need to really ask, that question. Well, why don't you want Bitcoin? They're advocating for at least a 1%, allocation. And they had some return charts and things like that. And it's actually made the portfolio even have better returns when mixed with a, 60-40 bond portfolio, US or equities to bond portfolio, the simple stuff. They did a study. They had a 1%, a 5%, and I think a 10% allocation. And the returns just got better and better with each allocation over long periods of time. And they were back testing this with, simple equities and a bond mixture. And then they even broke it down to, if you were to take 10% away from equities or 10% away from bonds, what that outcome would be. And again, the returns were far better when you have Bitcoin in there. So MJ Bonner says things go in cycles, always have. And then we have Screeching Possum. I mean, MSST got my attention after seeing how it performed versus BTCI in late April, early May. I don't think I've seen MSST. I got to check this one out. MSST ETF. Oh, Yield Max. Oh, wow. That's actually pretty interesting. Yeah, it's a target 25. A lot of people have been hyping up Winter too, man. Winter's been doing really good. Altafi says Friday stream. I will be doing a Friday stream, hopefully tomorrow, which is your guys' time, but for me, it'll be Saturday. Wonder what the Bitcoin day trader opinions are. That's a good question. I don't, Bitcoin day traders, from what I have, seen, or even crypto traders, I mean, they don't care about any of this. It's the people like who have longs in Bitcoin. You can be both, right? There's nothing wrong with you. You don't have to be one or the other. You can be both, right? You can be both a Bitcoin trader and a Bitcoin hodler, right? Like I know some people, at least, who hold Bitcoin, when they're trading it or they're trading other cryptos. I mean, they hold Bitcoin because, for other reasons, but mostly because they don't trust US banks and they're living overseas. But yeah, I'll leave it at that. But they don't care. They don't care whether Bitcoin goes down or up. They're just going to keep buying and keep throwing it in there because it's better than keeping their money in a bank. Let's see. Altafi says, I hate math. Let's see. Rod Stamon, welcome. He says down almost a quarter of BTCI, holding forever. We also have from Skeptic, shout out to the crypto bros. They give ETFs like blocks life. Yeah. I mean, volatility is vitality, as Saylor has said about, about Bitcoin. You need that volatility in order to have these amazing run-ups. If you didn't have the volatility, then these would never have happened, right? You would never have had these crazy run-ups. So you need the volatility for the asset. But as you guys can see, right, what is interesting about the power rule or power law is the power law is that it is including the idea of volatility dampening, which we are kind of seeing with the institutional ETFs, right? The volatility dampening. So this model does include that in this model, whereas the 4-year cycle does not. I think that was one of the biggest differences between the two. Altafi says he checked HOOW from Round Hill. It's 35 cents, not 55 cents. I love BM&R under 20. Man, if you've been buying under 20, I'm sure you're going to be super happy. And that's for accumulation. All right. We also have the working investor. I'm semi-bullish. Are you bullish on semis or are you semi-bullish on Bitcoin? My cap is 5% crypto exposure. I mean, that's a good exposure. Like, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. You know, that's better than zero. And I think you'll be rewarded in the future, assuming Bitcoin goes up, right? Yes, my allocation of Bitcoin is 20% in my portfolio. And I think Robinhood calculates that by even with the losses, right? Even with the price declines. So if we're to shoot back up, you know, it's probably gonna eat my portfolio. Bitcoin is the apex predator in the asset world, right? That's what Fred Krueger has said in Bitcoin 1 million. And that's kind of stuck with me because I'm going through it now. Like, I'm selling things in order to buy more Bitcoin. It is truly the black hole of assets. It is truly the apex predator of all these assets. Let's see what else we got. The working investor says exposure to crypto versus BEGS and RSSX. BEGS and RSSX for anyone who's interested in this type of exposure. I know these two ETFs. I have not looked at them in a long time. I forgot all about them, but yes, BEGS and RSSX. Let's see. Altafi says AMDW's dividend for next Tuesday is insane. I'll have to take your word for it. Yes, the Stack Master, working investor. Yes. Working investor has like 50 different ETFs in his portfolio, like in perfect barbell like fashion, perfectly balanced, as Thanos would say. Perfectly balanced. Let's see what else. But yeah, he also did some rebalancing. I saw your post on X, and I did see that you did sell off some of your winners to rebalance the port. Let's see. Screeching Possum says the working investors Fidelity's new fees now apply to BEGS. So I'm SOL. Oh, we didn't cover that yet. Yeah, we did not cover that. Oh, no, we did cover that. We did cover that. But I didn't know the makers of BEGS were also screwed. Who makes BEGS? Let's check it out. Rareview. Okay. Rareview Capital makes BEGS, which is a 2x bull cryptocurrency and precious metals ETF. Okay, so see, and the working investor's like, I'm not a degenerate. And then he pulls out things like this. I'm only kidding, of course. Rareview, yeah. So Rareview 2x bull cryptocurrency precious metals ETF. I know we covered this before at some point. I can't remember every single ETF we covered, but I remember seeing this one. So 70 to 80% to gold and 20 to 30% to silver, 75% to precious metals, and then the rest 75% to Bitcoin, and 25% to Ethereum. Okay, so this is a really big basket. This is a really big basket. I want to see what the actual holdings are. Do they list them here? Okay. We got to load some more here. So they got the Bitcoin swap. So they're using IBIT. Okay. It's because this is, all right. Yeah, this is 2x. I forgot. This is a 2x. So anyways, Ethereum, awesome. Silver, yeah. So they got the silver basket, Bitcoin, and then gold. Okay, that's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. Working investor. Let's see. Rodstamon says, I am happy Blocks is under $17. Keep falling like Optimus Prime. Oh, that is funny. Let's see. We got Skeptic, working investor getting like 2 to 3 assets off the same $1. Yeah, he's a degenerate. He just doesn't want to admit it. We have from Michael Hawks, why a USD collapse isn't guaranteed. Currency strength is relative, not absolute. The dollar is just the cleanest shirt in the dirty laundry, while the US debt to GDP is the highest at 120.8%. Look at its rivals. I agree 100%. I forget the damn saying. Jordy Visser said it. And it was really a really good, not analogy, but it was basically of all the currencies, the USD is the best, but you know, it is in a dirty basket, right? The whole basket is not good. I'm not in the romantic camp that the USD is just going to fall off a cliff and the world's going to adopt a Bitcoin reserve or the Bitcoin currency. I don't really believe that. At least I don't believe that at this moment. But again, the debasement trade is real, and the dollar is absolutely getting devalued, but it is still the best currency in the world, right? You still have the whole world operating off, the US dollar. Of course, you have BRICS, right? You have the BRICS nations trying to, get off, the petrodollar, get off, the US dollar. You have China trying to strong arm, other countries into, trading in their currency and not USD. So I don't know, but I do know that, the government's going to continue printing money. That's going to cause inflation. That's going to make the goods and values continue to climb. Meanwhile, wages are going to remain stagnant. So, oh, that's what it stands for. What if it couldn't have? Wow. Bitcoin, gold, Bitcoin, Ethereum, gold, and silver. That's what BEG stands for. Wow. What a simple ETF. Okay. Anyways, let's move on from this segment. We kind of front ran a lot of this. There's some other things that we could quickly cover. South Korea stocks did fall 4% as the heavyweights follow plunge in Wall Street's AI-linked names. So we saw names like SK Hynix and Samsung have a nice little sell-off. All right. And they're at least according to this article, which is we saw that in the heat map earlier. The Nasdaq composite underperformed as investors appear to rotate out of chip names in favor of non-tech stocks. So we saw that healthcare, financials were catching a bid, that those sectors were doing really well, right? Meanwhile, semiconductors were selling off. We also had Micron, which again is part of DRAM. DRAM, SK Hynix, Micron, and Samsung, they sold off. All of these sold off. Broadcom, Micron, ARM, Sync, leading chip stocks lower. Again, I'm not going to go through this whole article. I didn't even have a chance to actually read through it myself. But we see that happening. And again, I think two things. One, it's just people taking their money off the table. And the other one is people are getting ready for SpaceX, right? SpaceX IPO is around the corner. And a lot of people want to, kind of take some of their winners and hold that money and wait for the SpaceX IPO. So that's another idea. Let's see what else we got. I think we covered pretty much everything I wanted to talk about. The new ETF that's dropping from Defiance. We'll cover this one, and I think that'll conclude the stream. So Defiance is coming out with the Defiance Global Foundries ETF. And what this is going to be a huge basket. Not a huge basket. It's going to be a basket of 10 stocks. It seems like a lot of we saw that from Amplify launching like 5 or 6 different ETFs, and they're only going to have 10 names in there. We see from Tuttle that they're launching a bunch of ETFs and they have less than 20 or sometimes 25. We see from, the likes of Roundhill, they launched DRAM. They have, I think, a little under 12 holdings for DRAM. So these more concentrated names, these more concentrated ETFs are coming out, which is kind of interesting. All right. There's that word interesting, but kind of interesting. All right. So really quick, we'll just cover what's going to be in this ETF, and it's coming to a brokerage near you at some time in the future. To be eligible for inclusion, the company must derive at least 50% of its revenue from semiconductor foundry related activities, generate at least $2 billion in annual revenue from such activities during its most recent completed fiscal year. So they're looking for companies in the semiconductor wafer fabrication line, advanced node, mature node, and specialty node semiconductor manufacturing, logic, analog, mixed signal, power, radio frequency, and embedded semiconductor wafer production, specialty foundry services for micro electromechanical systems. Wow, what a word. Image sensors, photonics. There's photonics. Display drivers and other application-specific semiconductors, mass process manufacturing services. So these are going to be like probably the picks and shovels, right? The supply chain for foundries. So what is it going to take to get into this ETF? The company will need to at least have a free float percentage of at least 10%, a market cap greater than $1 billion. All right, so I think that's pretty much the mid caps. Let's see, mid cap companies. Cap. I think it's $1 billion. Oh, so it's like on the verge of a mid cap company, because for it to be classified as an actual mid cap, it needs to be $2 billion to $10 billion for mid caps. For small caps, it's usually 300 mil to 2 billion. So this will have a bunch of the small caps, which is where we're seeing a lot of names that we've never even heard of are getting huge run ups. That's where, like, you know, we covered on this channel before. That's where names like GCTS have come from. There's SATL. There was that one that just had a crazy run up, LAZE or LASE, whatever, Lays. And then you also have ASPI, right? ASPI is a small cap, micro cap, whatever you want to call it. But anyways, so we have that. A 3-month daily average trading volume of at least $1 million during the current quarter, prior to 2 quarters, and minimum trading volume thresholds. All right, so how are they going to build this or construct this ETF? They're going to target the top 10 constituents, probably of the small caps. So they're going to look for the market leaders of that range. Eligible companies are ranked by free float market cap, with the 10 highest ranked companies generally selected for inclusion. So again, this is going to be a very concentrated ETF. Our constituents are weighted based on their free float adjusted market caps, subject to a maximum weight of 20% per constituent. So you're not going to have the Nvidias, the Broadcoms, the Microns of the world in this ETF. This is going to be strictly small cap from what it sounds like. So that's really interesting. Let's see. Skeptic says, yeah, I think people forget the USD dominance. Yes, USD dominance isn't going away. As a matter of fact, our Navy is going to ensure that doesn't happen. Our Navy and military are going to ensure that doesn't happen. The financial warfare that's been going on this whole year, since last year, is proof of that, right? Let's see what else we have. If we lose it tomorrow, all currency gets screwed. Yep. Everything is pegged to the dollar. Everything is pegged to the dollar. So what ticker is this? It's not a ticker yet because this is a brand new filing. So we won't know the ticker, at least probably for the next couple of weeks, until they update this, until they update this filing. Oh, we do have a ticker. DGFE, subject to change. Okay. All right. Well, that's cool. Michael Hawksworth says target issuance or unknown, pending. I think it is pending. We don't know how many shares they're going to offer. We don't even know the expense ratio. Like, we don't know the fee. It's probably going to be in the, you know, actually, I don't even know. Whatever QTUM is, it's probably what this is going to be. QTUM is the quantum ETF from Defiance. So let's see what that is. So that fee is 40 basis points. 40 basis points. So that's what we got. So maybe this will be 40 basis points as well. But I don't think so. I think it's probably gonna be higher because of the small cap names. We'll see. So Michael Hawksworth says, thanks for the stream. This looks very interesting. You're very welcome. And thank you for the support and watching the stream. Did you see the NEOS silver ETF filing? No, I thought they already had a silver ETF. It's all old anyways. Like, I mean, silver, there's enough silver ETFs out there now to go around. I don't know how Defiance stays in the game. They almost run their own race. Man, they'd be dropping ETFs like it's going out of style. Like, they really do be having way too many ETFs. But you know, QTUM was a winner last year. QTUM definitely was the winner last year. Let's see what this is. So, Skeptic, I see your message. Oh, okay. So here's the silver ETF coming out from NEOS. There we go. The NEOS Silver High Income ETF. Boosted silver and Russell. That is crazy. That will be crazy. Let's take a look. All right. Well, strategies. do the following. They're going to use silver ETPs, investing 25% of the fund into those ETPs, seeking to track the price of silver through a synthetic option strategy through the combination of purchasing call options, selling put options on silver ETPs with a notional value up to 75% of the fund's net assets. And their goal is providing high monthly income. So, yeah, I mean, this is nothing like, and it's not like a super crazy ETF. I mean, we have the silver miners ETF from X Funds. They do both the silver and the mining companies. I think that was pretty cool. Neos has a gold one, so I'm actually surprised they never filed for a silver one. So it's nice that silver's finally going to come out. But their gold one won an award, so I mean that says a lot, especially for Neos. Coasty Dividend says, "I'm buying XBCI and Blocks." I think Blocks is an excellent ETF. As a matter of fact, let's see if our boys around. Let's see. Hold on. Damn, what he changes his freaking YouTube channel, I think. Hold on. So I talk with Pay Me in Dividends from time to time. And he ended up going into a crazy combination, which I think is actually the smartest thing at the moment. So what? Let me get this right here. So Pay Me in Dividends, ladies and gentlemen, you guys can check him out if you want to. He hasn't published in quite some time. I think this was his last video about 4 days ago, but definitely worth checking him out. So he decided to just go into Chippy and Blocks, 50% allocation. That is it. That he's taking advantage of the entire AI trade, and he's taking advantage of whatever happens to Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all the mining companies. And Blocks, as you guys know, has outperformed IBIT by a huge leaps in margin, right? So again, you can't get more simplified than that, right? You just have 50% the Blocks. There's your whole crypto exposure. 50% the Chippy. There's all your AI semi exposure, and you're getting paid, whatever income. So I think this is the most stupid, simple way of just going about it, right? I'm not saying go out and do that. I'm not advocating for it at all. I like diversification in some ways. I like to pick and choose. But, if you wanted a simplified approach to taking advantage of the AI theme, and making income, as well as, any crypto stuff that happens between now and Bitcoin's run up, I mean, Blocks is pretty good. I think a lot of people, love Blocks. There's a huge Blocks community out there, and David Nicholas from X Funds has absolutely did phenomenal with Blocks. I mean, you got to give credit where credit is due, and he's answered some of the hard questions. You had a lot of people on X that were just upset about things Blocks did, and Blocks just improved. And I think it's a fantastic. If I didn't have so much MSTW, I think more likely than not, I would definitely be in Blocks. But yes, screeching about what a mad lad. Absolutely. This guy is insane, but it's crazy. He shared he had a different portfolio, not too long ago. And he was, again, we all run into these problems where we're chasing things, right? What is it saying? One bird in the hand for two in the bush, right? We're all chasing this and chasing that theme, that narrative, that stock. Photonics is the new play. Oh, no. Now it's going to be 4G, 5G. No. Now it's cell towers, right? Now it's AI infrastructure, right? We're always chasing things. And what he just did was that, screw it. I'm done chasing all these names. I'm just going to go Blocks, Chippy. I mean, you can't get more simple than that. And you guys know, like Chippy, SMH, right? SMH, the semiconductor space, that's going to be around and in demand easily for the next decade, easily, as the data centers get built, as AI continues to push. You're going to have innovation in the space, right? Now they're talking about native AI on cell phones, native AI in cars, native AI across, the board, right? Agentic AI. You're going to have agentic AI running on laptops, right? We saw the RTX Spark from the Computex conference with Nvidia, and that basically can run, AI right there on the computer. So actually without using a chat prompt, you can run AI on the local computer. So a lot of cool things happening. From JTX, I would have done Block, Chippy, and GPTY. I don't know. I haven't really checked on GPTY in a long time, but I know that was a good fund. The strategy that YieldMax implemented for both GPTY and Chippy probably was some of the best strategies that they ever came out with, right? They're holding the actual shares, right? The actual shares of these names, and their strategies that they have, they get more flexibility in there, so they can take advantage of market swings. No, I never had AMDW in my portfolio. It was not a company I was betting on. I was betting on Nvidia. So I have NVDW and I still have that to this day. Sergio says, sounds almost like my plan last year, but using different ETFs, Misty and Ulti. Oh my God. Good old Misty, good old Ulti. For anyone who's interested in the cyber story. All right. We covered this, I think on yesterday's stream with CrowdStrike. There was another article that came out, and AI detection services or detection systems, AIDS, is going to be a new theme for cybersecurity companies, right? I talked about it. I talked about how the Trump administration, Trump just signed an executive order, basically giving, the government 30 days to implement and refine and refresh the cyber directives, their cyber platforms, everything, right? They just took stakes in quantum. I don't think it'd be far-fetched if new deals come out, or maybe possibly stakes in the market leaders for cyber names come out. You're going to have cyber names start to implement AI in their software. So between February all the way to present day, we had the SaaS apocalypse, we had Anthropic Mythos come out, and then the cyber names completely sold off, right? Cyber names software sold off. Palantir is still down. Palantir should not be down. Palantir has smashed earnings twice and just continues to steamroll earnings. But of course, they're lumped in with software, right? But anyways, Mythos scared the living crap out of these companies. But it turns out a lot of these cyber names had access to Mythos, and they were using it and testing it and probably going to start implementing it in their own cyber softwares. So that is interesting to me. That is very interesting to me, that these companies have been using it, or at least, have exposure to it. So is it far-fetched to think that in the future with AIDS, artificial intelligence, the Mythos being utilized by companies like CrowdStrike, Palo Alto, Fortinet, F5, Cloudflare, right? For cyber defense. So I think it has a really bright future. I think it is a new wave in the cyber space, in the cyber sector. I think it's a new wave, because I'm an out of touch IT guy. I haven't really followed the industry in quite some time, but AIDS sounds really interesting, and it was going to happen. It had to happen. Names like Cisco, they're implementing AI on their switches, on their networking and security, devices. So it was only going to happen. Let's see what we got. But anyways, this is Cyber, CIBR. Shout out to Serial Beggar in the community for posting this. I'm not sure if he's watching the stream, but shout out for posting this. And this only has a couple of holdings. This doesn't have really a large basket, which again is a concentration piece. Where is it? Where are the holdings? All right, holdings. You're going to have the usual suspects in here, the ones I just mentioned. So this has 42 names. I think Hack from Amplify, I think that only has 25 names. But anyways, the First Trust Cybersecurity ETF Cyber has 42. You're going to have CrowdStrike, Palo Alto, Fortinet, Cisco, Broadcom, Cloudflare, Akamai Technologies, Datadog F5, Zscaler, NetApp. So this has other names in here besides just cybersecurity names, because NetApp, they're a storage company. Arista Networks, of course. Infosys. Yeah, that one's foreign. And they do a lot of computer services. They do a lot of contracting. So you got BlackBerry in here, which had an amazing run up. Shout out to anyone that did get into BlackBerry. There was an announcement in the Discord the day before it ran up, which is crazy. Like the timing was crazy. But anyways, I ended up getting in BlackBerry. I sold BlackBerry. I just wanted a quick in and out. A10 Networks, NetScout. See, but yeah, I didn't know NetScout does software. That's crazy. But anyways, yeah, these are the names. All right, this is kind of the idea behind having exposure to cyber. Of course, you guys don't have to. Full disclosure, I bought Hack from Amplify. I mentioned that yesterday. But I don't know if I'll sell Hack and buy cyber. Pretty happy where I'm at right now. All right, let's take. Sergio says Microsoft already wants to deploy local LLMs onto your computer if you're using Office 365. Those bastards. Let's see. Dividend Sith says huge. Remember, I said chippy to 100. That was at 75. We are at $85. Hey, shout out to anyone that's in chippy right now. I'm sure you guys are very, very happy with your gains and your distribution. I think it's 45% right now. I remember when it was 30. I got into it at inception and kicking myself that I didn't stay in, but it wasn't because I became bearish semis or anything like that. It's just I ended up using the money. First, it was an accident that I sold out because I put a limit order, I think, or a stop loss. I think it was a stop loss. I put a stop loss and I read the damn thing wrong and it ended up selling all my shares. So I was like, screw it. Well, whatever. I'm out of chippy. I'm not buying back in. And then I ended up buying HOW with some of that money. And then, Robinhood had an amazing run to 150. That's when HOW was like $75. That was crazy. On inception, it just had this amazing run up. But yeah, obviously we look at it nowadays and it's not doing it as hot. Skeptic says First Trust, the gods of good ETFs, just need a better website. Yeah, this thing looks like it was made in like 98. This is like such a disgusting website. They need those Corgi websites, man. They need things like Corgi or even Tuttle. Like Tuttle, their Spacey website looks like atrocious, but then they came out with their HBMX website, and that looks really cool. And it goes over the things, like it catches the eye. Anyways, Screeching Possum says, I know, right? A lot of funds I like, but the website is stuck in 1999. Yeah. This has early 90s vibes, like First Trust. I can imagine like a commercial coming up. Remark says TDVI, great fund from First Trust. If you're looking for tech income. Let's take a look. Oh, I don't even know. Okay, income funds. Look at that. They even have an auto callable, a laddered auto callable. And this came out this year. Did we cover this? I don't know if we did cover this. This doesn't look like something we covered. Skeptic, look at this treasure trove of content for you. Look at this treasure trove of future content for you and X. Absolutely amazing. So here it is. I assume this is TDVI. All right, one thing I want to know is what the heck the expense ratio is. That's not bad, especially for an income product. Let's see what the distribution is. What? Not 100%? Not even 50%? Oh, man, this is garbage. This is trash. I would never put my money in this thing. It needs to be at least 50%. All jokes aside, this is actually pretty nice. So since 2024, I mean, look at that run up. My God. TDVI ETF. 38% year to date, up 23%. And it's income fund. So again, not too bad. Wait, what is this? FTBI? All right, we're gonna check this last ETF, and I think I'm gonna call it a day for everybody because I got to get my butt going. Let's see. Let's go back here and we'll take a look here. FTBI. Okay, not there. Let's see if we can FTBI ETF. So is this just a basket? Yeah. Okay. This, I think I remember covering this one. Yeah, it just has a bunch of income ETFs in there. It's just a basket of income ETFs that they hold. So it's like a fund of funds. And Skeptic was nice enough to create a quick image for us, so we can take a look at that in case people are interested in something like this. So yeah, it holds the whole thing. So you got technology, you got the buy right income, which is I thought XLD, XYLD, or is it? There's another income fund that follows the buy right index. So you have the Qs in here. Yeah, you got a bunch in here. And then you also gold, look, a little bit of gold exposure. You got some Gov, MGov. Yeah, so you have treasuries in here, you have bonds, you have income from dividend and, buy right indexing or options or cover calls or whatever. So yeah, this is like an all-in-one type of ETF. Curious what the distribution is. Oh my God, not even 50%. Skeptic, what are you trying to push here? Like, this isn't even 100% yield, not even a 10%. Garbage. Would never touch this thing. Ew. Just kidding, of course. Awesome. Well, thank you for that. Let's see what we got from Skeptic, and then we'll close it out. Skeptic, they save money on good SEO and UI, but pour it into good investment funds. That seems to be it. He also says, well, since we're on the website, yeah, and we just covered that, 7-8% monthly yield and LMAO. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you guys joining me for the stream. I hope you guys were at least a little entertained. If not, you got a little bit of entertainment from all of this. I appreciate you guys joining for the stream. I will catch you guys in tomorrow's Friday stream. And as always, you guys have a great evening, a great rest of your day, wherever you are in the world. And you guys take care. Thank you.